great. Thanks for coming back. If I'm not mistaken, I think you might be my first return guest. And um, I, you have a book, The Wealth Elite, a groundbreaking study of the psychology of the super rich, that I'm very eager to talk about. And one reason why, or I guess before I dive into that, what got you interested in this question about the psychology of the super rich?
Well, I think there are a lot of people who are interested in the topic how to get rich. If you look how many people play the lottery every every week, what is very unlikely to get rich in this way. But I think these people they don't do it because they hope to win 10 pounds or 10 euros, but because they hope that they will win the jackpot maybe, or to be a millionaire in this way. So everyone, I think, who plays the lottery is definitely someone who's interested in getting rich. And another example, there are so many books, so-called self-help books, how to get rich quick, and so about stock investments and whatever. There are a lot of books. Some of them are interesting, others not so. And but what is very rare are scientific studies about this topic. If there are scientific studies about wealth, then it's in most cases it's about what they call the inequality topic, or the so-called gap between the rich and the poor, and all these topics, but not, as you mentioned before, on the individual uh, level. What are the personality traits, for example, that are important if you want to become rich? And it's funny, but it's easier to find a doctoral thesis, for example, about the heartbeat of a pig during a 100-meter race. It's a fact that you can find a doctoral dissertation, or about the life of rare insects, or the atmosphere of planet Venus, but not about how to get rich, the personality traits. And so I saw there a gap in the research. And as a scholar, this is interesting for me. And on the other hand, I became rich myself as an entrepreneur and investor. So I knew how it worked for me, but I was curious to learn more from other people who became rich, and how was their background. So these were the reasons why I wrote this book.
Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons I think it is so interesting, is that we oftentimes people will write about their own success. And I find that really interesting and valuable. But at the same time, it can be very hard even to know for oneself what were the things that allowed me to succeed. And so being able to talk to a wide group and drill down very deeply, you're able to bring out both similarities and differences. And so instead of like, this is what I did and therefore this is how one does it, it's this is what a wide spectrum of people did, how they thought about it, their areas of agreement and disagreement. So that was valuable. But the other thing that you did is you dived into a lot of literature, whether it was psychological literature, even philosophers and economists, and how they think about wealth creation. So that's it's really building on a wide store of data and insight.
Yes, thank you.
And which is, we could contrast that with, I think you mentioned the kind of inequality debates. And I think even wider than that, if you ask people, what is the psychology of the super rich? They would basically say, well, it's just greed. So all you need to know is that these are people who kind of place nothing above getting as much money as possible. And that is, in their view, kind of totally explanatory about this. And I'm curious as to what your thought is of that sort of analysis.
Yes, if it would be so easy to grow rich, only to be greedy, I think there would be much more rich people in the world. And I think the prisons are full of people who thought that it's important to be greedy to grow rich, and not only in the prisons, but also in the university, you find a lot of leftist intellectuals who believe in this stuff. I I don't believe in this. Look, most people who became rich, they became rich as entrepreneurs. Even in my study, I interviewed 45 very rich people, and almost every one of them grew rich as an entrepreneur. And if you look in the lists of the wealthiest people in the world, for example, the Forbes list, and you look about the background of these people, how did they become rich? Take, for example, Bill Gates became rich with Microsoft because he had a great idea. He did something, or he invented something what was what has a big benefit for almost every one of us. So I use Microsoft Word, for example. Maybe you use it as well. The same is with Larry Page and Sergey Brin, the founders of Google. The same with them. I use Google. I think you use Google, and so a lot of people benefited from this. And this is the way they grew rich. Or Jeff Bezos, the same with Amazon. I order my books with Amazon. Maybe you do it as well, and I order some other things with Amazon. And I think this is the secret. People become rich if they have good ideas as entrepreneurs. And greedy people, maybe some of them are greedy, others are not. You find greedy people in every social class. You find as well poor people who are greedy. I think this is only maybe the psychological background why some people think about rich people are greedy or not honest, or generally spoken have bad moral standards. It's only, it's easy for them then to explain why I'm not rich. Okay, I'm such a good person, so I'm so honest, and I'm so with such high moral standards, so I couldn't be economical or financial successful. So it's a life lie maybe for some people. I don't believe in this.
No, I think to the extent that there's any truth to it, I think there's something right that they're capturing, which is that there's a constant ambition for growth, that whatever they've achieved, they want to achieve more. But that is very different from however much money you have, you want more, regardless of the kind of actions that lead to it, right? Like Amazon, if Jeff Bezos's goal was just to amass a fortune, he could have retired a long time ago. And instead he was, one of the longest lasting founders ever, but he wanted Amazon to achieve more and more things. And one of the things you highlight is actually on the topic of money, there's a wide range of different attitudes that the super wealthy have towards money. Some of them, they love, spending on, cars and yachts or whatnot. But for a lot of them, at most, it's kind of like a scorecard of, all right, am I creating value? Am I doing something that's actually productive? But not that much of an interest really in kind of what we would think of as consuming. They're much more interested in building and expanding.
Yes, I agree with this. I had a lot of questions in my study. Maybe to explain it to everyone, I conducted interviews with this 45 people. Every one of them had a net worth at least 10 million, but most of them were in the range between 30 million and 1 billion. Even there were some billionaires or multi-billionaires. And I spoke with every one of them between 1 and 2 hours. And one of the questions was, what does money mean for you? And I spoke about some things to, yes, for example, to buy these fine things in life, nice cars, big mansion, and so on. And yes, maybe for for I think something 15 from them, these things were very important. There are people, not all rich people are the same, like not all poor people are the same. But this was not what they had all in common. There were other interviewers. I remember one, he was one of the richest, and he told me he never bought a shirt in his life that was more expensive than 30 euros, and he was only one times in life in vacation, and he was absolutely not interested in this luxury goods and so. But what was all for all of them very important is independence and freedom, financial freedom. What do I mean with financial freedom? Uh, Look, most of the people, they work because they have to work to pay their bills, to pay their rent, and all this stuff. These people worked as well, but not one of them had to work. Uh, so financial freedom means for me, the question is whether you work, what you work, where you work, with whom you work, when you work. Yes, it's all by you. It's all your own decision. This is financial freedom, independence. Yes, and this was what they had in common. What money mean for them. And sometimes people discuss about the topic whether does money make you happy or so. You know this discussion. And if someone asks me, does money make you happy? I ask another question back. Does freedom make you happy? Yes, and I think most people would agree that freedom makes you more happy. Yes, and financial freedom is only one part of it. That, that you can look. My situation, for example, I work all over the day. I love to work it, but if I if I would decide, no, next year I don't want to work, or I go now to United States or wherever, I have no boss. I have no. There's no need to work for me because I have enough money to live for the next maybe 200 or 300 years. And so this is a completely different situation to people who have to work every day. And I think this is very important. Money means for these people freedom, financial freedom.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a funny question, like does money buy happiness or make you happy? I mean, you could ask the same thing of like does marriage make you happy? Well, it can. Like if you choose the right person and you're intelligent about how you pursue and nurture the relationship, but it's not if you're miserable and not living the kind of life you want and you choose a partner that is not good for you and you don't tend to the relationship, like it can lead to disaster. I think of money very similarly, as it has this amazing potential, but it's not a guarantee that you're going to use it wisely. And obviously there's certain things that it alone can't fix. But as you say, that's such an incredible power. Like, I think for most people, your career is one of the most um, central ways that you can achieve a sense of purpose, meaning, growth, pleasure. And if you're doing that on your own terms instead of terms dictated you by the need to pay the bills, that's a way better thing. That's a better situation to be in.
Yes, and sometimes I wonder, people tell you always money alone doesn't make you happy. Sure, I agree, but I found not only one person in my life who claimed this, that money alone makes you happy. Of course not. It would be the same if I say sex alone doesn't make you happy. Yes, it's true, but does it mean that sex is not important to have a good life? I think it is important, not alone, yes, but it's one thing that is important, and the same with money.
So, what did you find in terms of why people become entrepreneurs, why they go into business, what kind of motives? Obviously, one would be money and the freedom and independence it buys, but were there other kinds of things that led people to take what is a pretty risky path?
Yes, first, let me tell you something about the family background of my interviewees. Most of them came not from rich families. They had no wealthy parents. On the other hand, they had also not a working class background, but most of them had a middle class background. But what is important, 6 out of 10 had parents who were self-employed, and so they were role models for them. I think I don't know how it is in UK, but in Germany, only 6% of the population as a whole are self-employed, and here it was 60%. And so, you know, they were role models. If you have a family background where your parents, your grandparents, and about generations, everyone was, for example, civil servant, yes, then it's you have to get this idea to become an entrepreneur. But then there were two groups of people. One, they worked as employees in a company, but they were impatient. One of them told me, I didn't like to wait now the next 20 years to become the CEO of my company. So I wanted faster. I wanted the next years. And I know if I stay here in this company, I will need maybe 10, 20 years to get there. And so maybe they started a business on the side to their job, and then they saw that they are successful, and then they quit their job. This was one group, but there was another group. These were people who never worked as employees, and a reason is in a lot of cases these are difficult people who had difficulties maybe to get along with other people, or difficulties to subordinate to authority, to a boss. One told me, okay, if you have a boss who's really smart and intelligent, it wouldn't be a problem for me. But if there's someone I think he's not as good as he thinks, but I have to tell him every
Right.
day, oh boss, this was a great idea. I couldn't do this. Yes. And another one told me, if I would have to work, if I would work as an employee in a big company, I would have to take pills or drugs every day, because you know, these are people, some of them who have really a problem with authority. This has something to do also with independence and freedom and so on. They don't want to get they don't want to have someone who tells them every day what they have to do and how they have to do it. They want to make their own decisions. So these are some motives to start their own business. I think you are as well self-employed, or is it correct?
Right. And for a while,
different. Maybe maybe I can ask you what was your reason? Was it one of these reasons that I mentioned?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I mean, the way I started out as an employee. So you mentioned the role model statistic, which I found fascinating. I interviewed a friend of mine who's an artist on this show a few weeks back. And one of the things that was fascinating to me is he was, as a kid, surrounded by people who made their living as artists or writers. And so it seemed very real to him. Oh, this is something a real person just like me could do. They could go out there and make money by doing art, by writing books. Whereas I grew up and I didn't know anybody like that. And so it seemed kind of like a mythical thing that people did. Yes, people became writers and artists, but not somebody like me. And then it was only through experience that I realized, oh no, I could actually do this. And I was an employee for a long time, but one of the things I found was you could spot very quickly the people who in some number of years you knew were going to break off and do their own thing. They had that kind of independent streak and just carry themselves a different way. And I was happy to work with my previous boss precisely because what you mentioned, which is I respected his judgment enough that I wasn't second guessing him. I thought he knows what he's doing and I really admire what he's doing. But ultimately, what I wanted was the freedom to act on any project that I thought was interesting, do it my way, decide my own hours, precisely that kind of independence. And it hasn't led to freedom yet because I haven't become wildly successful, but it's much more freedom than you can get as an employee.
Oh yeah, okay.
What so there's kind of a long-standing debate that do you think the character traits that are leading people to become successful or successful entrepreneurs, are they something that people can cultivate? Like, could they, read your book and uh, say, okay, I want to build these traits in myself so I can become more wealthy and successful? Or do you think that it's sort of you're born with it or you aren't?
I think both things are right. On the one hand, um, I think there are some people who have personality traits that make it more likely that they will be successful. But maybe not everyone knows about it. Maybe some people will read the book and they will see, oh, there are a lot of personality traits similar to me, but I never had the idea in my life to become rich or entrepreneur. So I think there are much more people with this potential to do it. On the other hand, if you look for an easy recipe, how, in a lot of this so-called self-help books, 7 steps how to become millionaire in the next 3 or 5 years or whatever. I don't believe in this stuff. I don't be. I tell people always, if you look for easy recipe and for someone who tells you do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's guaranteed to become rich, please don't buy this book because this is definitely the wrong book for you. But on the other hand, if you want to learn something, I have a lot of lectures about this topic all over the world, not now because of coronavirus, but before I was in a lot of countries to speak about this topic. And I asked always the audience who want to grow rich. And okay, most of the people who were there, they raised their hands. But then I asked, if you would have the opportunity to speak in the next 3 months with 45 super rich self-made people about their background, their family, their attitudes, their learnings, would you be interested to do it? They said, everyone, sure, I am. But then I asked, but who knows 45 super rich people? You can talk to them. And no one raised their hand. So I did it for you. Yes, I did it for you, but not as an easy recipe, but as something like food of thought. Yes, something you can think about, to think about yourself, not in this way here. I need someone who tells me exactly what to do. I know there are some people who expect exactly this. They want to have someone who tells them, but I'm sure these people will never be successful. So if they look for someone who will think instead of them and tell them what to do, this is the employee mindset. Yes, here is a boss and he tells me what I have to do, or here's an author and he tells me what I have to do. I have a different approach. I tell everyone, I give you some results from scientific research. I give you here a lot of interviews, statements, and then start to think about yourself. And then I'm sure you will learn something about you. I did it for me as well after speaking with these people.
Well, yeah, I wonder if you could say more about that. What is it about the process that, let's say, you went through to become successful that you think you couldn't nobody could have like taught you that. Nobody could have set out, all right, here's the 5 steps you should follow on your journey. What were the kinds of choices you faced or issues or challenges that just required your own kind of creative problem solving?
You ask about me as
Right.
my own. Yes, I think the most important thing was the decision. I want to be rich. So this was the most important thing, because my family background is my father was a priest, and usually they don't have such a positive attitude towards money. My father told me already, it's okay, you need money, but it's like, he gave this example, it's like toilet paper. You need it, yes, but doesn't smell good, especially when it's used. And so this was how I grew up. And so I had some in my subconscious, some negative programming about negative belief system about money, about maybe superficial people who are only interested in this luxury goods. And then there was a time in my life I had some problems, because I'm always someone to swim against the stream, even with politics, for example. And then I walked with a German politician, and this politician was wealthy as well, because he was very, very successful, a lawyer. And then he told me, if you are nonconformist, like we are, you and me, first you have to make some money, because it's easier to stand your ground and to have your own opinion, and it's easier to swim against the stream if you have money. And this was very important for me, because in the moment he told me this, two things came together for me. Money, what had a little bit a negative connotation because of my family background, but freedom and non-conformism, what had a very positive connotation. So, and these two things came together. And after this, I said, okay, I'm convinced I'm gonna get rich. So, and at this time I had absolutely zero money. It was time with German Deutschmarks, and I had plus 20,000 on my bank account, but minus 30,000 on my checking account. So it was good for the bank, but I had absolutely nothing at this moment. But I made the decision, and this was the most important thing. At this moment, I didn't know how to grow rich. Yes, I didn't know how, but I knew why. And this is what a lot of people don't understand, that it's not so important in the first step to know why, to know how, but to know why. You have to have a reason that motivates you for years to do it, to be ambitious. And so this is, you asked about my own experience, and this was my own experience, and it took me maybe 5 years, and I was a millionaire, and then came 1 million to the next and to the next. I started my own business, and entrepreneur. I made investments in real estate, and so, and this was my story. And for me, it was very important to swim against the stream, and this was also something that a lot of these entrepreneurs, investors had in common. I was always in my life like a non-conformist, and this doesn't make life always easy for you. But with investments, it's a great thing. I made all my money because I did things totally different from the others. I didn't hear to the advice what you should do or not, but I made my own decision. And so I learned that something that makes life sometimes difficult with investments and with making money, it's great if you have this mindset that you enjoy swimming against the tide.
Well, I'm curious as to, so you make this decision, okay, I have my why. I want that. I swim against the tide, and I want that money there that enables me to live that kind of life. But since you're starting out with nothing, what's the first thing you do? And I'm in order to start, okay, how am I going to get rich? And I'm asking not in order that you'll give us the 5 steps to rich, but I'm trying to figure out how your mind worked. What did you start thinking about in terms of, okay, how am I going to start to bring that into reality?
Yes, I knew nothing about money and how to make money, and I'm someone who reads always a lot of books. So definitely the first thing was I bought a lot of books about the topic. Some were very good, some not, and um, I I've gone through some seminars, yes, 2 or 3 days about this topic, financial freedom, how to get rich, and I listened to all these things, and then I had the idea maybe something with sales and real estate, because I saw all this, in this TV movies. The real estate guys were always the guys with nice cars and nice girls and with a lot of money. And maybe I was a little bit naive and thought maybe want to be a broker. And I went to a seminar with brokers, and I learned most of them weren't really rich. On the contrary, I had more money than they had. But then I started I learned to sell things in the financial industry. This was the first step, because someone told me it's very important that you learn to sell. And this is, by the way, one of the results of my interviews as well, that it's sales is very, very important. And so I learned it. And I think it's very important to be open-minded, yes, to learn new things, because at this time I was I was successful in other fields. I was an historian. I was the best at university. I had my doctorate degree. I had my a book about history, what got very good reviews, and so I was successful, but I knew that this is not important for this new stuff, how to get money, my doctor and all these things. And I knew that I had to learn a lot. And so I met some people who were good in sales, for example, or they understood something about real estate and so. And I learned from them. This is very important. So I think everyone has his own way, but I think it's a mixture from learning by doing. On the one hand, no one gets rich only by reading books. So yes, but on the other hand, it can make sense to read some books, because in these books it's nothing else than experience other people made, and you don't have to make all the mistakes by yourself. Yes, you can learn from, and it motivates you. I remember this time I read one book by Jim Rogers. Maybe you know him.
The investor.
Yes, investor, was a hedge fund manager together with George Soros, and he's a nonconformist, exactly like I was. And it inspired me, his story, and his, with his, his story with his motorbike. I think 130 countries all over the world, 3 years with his motorbike, and you have him in the Guinness Book of Records. And after this, 2 more years with a car, more than 100. Later in my life, I met him in person in Singapore sometimes. And at this time, I didn't know him, but I know his books, and it inspired me. And so I think if and it's not only my opinion. Maybe you some in your audience think he's biased because he's an author and he want to sell his book. Of course, first, of course, I will. So you should buy my book. But if you don't believe me, maybe you believe in Warren Buffett. If they asked him at this meetings of Berkshire Hathaway, young people, what they should do, he tell them, start to read books. He told them, when I was 10 years, I read every book with finance or money in the title when I was 10 years old in the library of my hometown. And some of them I read twice. So, and his partner, you know, Charlie Munger, his kids, they say he's a book on two legs because they tell he reads every day one book. So, okay, reading books, it's not a guarantee. But for me, it was a way. And because I didn't look for these recipes, but I wanted to think about it. And if you want to think about something, you need some stuff that get you started thinking in some different directions. So this is one possibility. You have to make your own experience, like I did. Started to in sales to sell, make my own experience, learning by doing. Reading, on the other hand, I think this combination was a good approach for me.
Yeah, I've had very similar experience, precisely the interplay between learning by doing and reading. So, I mean, I remember, back when I was just doing kind of standard intellectual work, I mean, kind of what you were doing back in your PhD days, right? Where I was just writing about ideas and everything. I became very interested in marketing, sales, but I didn't really have that many opportunities at that stage in my career to implement it. So I read it. But once I started doing sales and marketing, and made some mistakes, had some experience, I would go back and read some of these items, and suddenly I go, oh, okay, there's it gave me new ideas, and also became much more applicable because I could see, okay, this really makes sense. I've been there and I've done that. This guy's just kind of talking out of his ass. It was those two together I find are really powerful.
Absolutely, I agree.
One of the topics you touch on is something that I think is a very widespread view and has become really emphasized in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, is this idea that success is really or mostly a matter of luck. And part of what you explore in the book is the attitude towards luck of successful individuals. So what did you find when you talked to them in terms of their view of luck?
Yes, you can hear it very often how important is luck, especially people who are not successful will tell you, but some days even successful people will tell you. Later on, I will come back to this. Why?
Please do, because that's one of your most interesting, I don't know if you want to call it a theory or insight, as to why some successful people.
Yes, I will come later back to this, but first, my attitude to this topic. I think whether you meet happy coincidences is not so important as the question whether you are able to recognize this. It's, there. I tell you an example maybe so that it's not so abstract. When I have my lectures, then sometimes in the end of the lecture, I take a book there and I ask, who would I have this book? So, and first moment, people don't know what it is about. Can I get it now, or should I buy it? And so, and then after a few seconds, some people recognize, oh, there's something for free. Yes, and they start to run. And in most cases, it's not the people in the first front row who get this book, but maybe someone from the middle. Even one time it happened that someone from one of the last rows who got this book. And then I tell people, okay, why did I do it? Because you see, if it would be only about external circumstances, only these people in the first row would have an opportunity to get the book because they have, the shortest distance to get it. No other. But it's important to recognize, okay, there is an opportunity. Not everyone recognized it so quick. And then the next thing is, even if you recognize it, you have to act fast. Yes. And I think maybe there were some people that, oh, maybe I get something for free, but maybe not. And how does it look if I run there first and in this time where he thought about it? Yes. Another one acted. Yes. And right. He got the book. And so it's only one example that it's not about external circumstances, but it's whether you recognize this. And I never found someone who had always good or bad luck all over his life. I will tell you only a minute about my next book. My next book is about, I have 20 portraits about successful disabled people. Yes,
Oh,
disabled
wow.
people like Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, Stephen Hawking, for example, Beethoven, yes, and a lot of others. And these, could you say they had good luck? Take someone like Ray Charles. He, in the list of Rolling Stone and Billboard, he's, I think, number 2 of the most successful singers in the whole history. And even in the 60s, he had something like $100 million. I think today he would be even a billionaire. But what was his background? He was born in the poorest family in his town. Good luck? No. He had no father. He never met his father in his life. Good luck? No. His mother died with 31 years. Good luck? No. His brother died in front of his eyes when he was very young. And then he became blind with 7 years. So good luck? No. Bad luck. Bad luck, bad luck, bad luck. But then he became one of the most successful singers in history. And he had some problems in his life. For a lot of years, he took drugs, yes. But then in his autobiography, he wrote, "Who was guilty? Who should I blame that I took these drugs? Maybe the police wanted that he told them about the drug dealer." And so he said, "No, there's no one else who was responsible. There's only one person. Yes, I took it. And this is very important. Successful people, they take responsibility not only for their success, but also for their failure and for their setbacks. And so this is only an example. And the last year I spoke with some of these people. I spoke, for example, with Eric Weinmeier, who climbed the 7 summits on 7 continents blind. Maybe you heard about him.
Yeah.
Even the Mount, I spoke with him, even the Mount Everest. Yes. So was he someone with good luck? No, he was blind. And so I think it's not so much about external circumstances. It's about how you react, and it's about your mindset. So I don't believe in luck. And now the other question: why do some successful people, if you ask them, why are you so successful, they tell you, "Oh, I was lucky." Yes. There's a theory, it's not my theory, but it's from a German sociologist, and Erwin Scheu. And I liked his idea, and he wrote in this book, it has something to do with envy, because if you're successful, there are a lot of enviers, and if you want to defend yourself against envy, yes, then maybe it's easier if you say, it was only good luck. Take example, if someone would ask me, "Mr. Zitelmann, why are you so successful? You have 2 doctor degrees, yes, you have so much money, and you have always the prettiest girls, and you have a great body, and so why is that?" And if I tell them, "Okay, it's very easy. I'm more intelligent than you. I'm more ambitious. I'm more industrious. I'm better than you." I think it wouldn't sound so nice. Yes, everyone would
For
say,
sure.
how crazy is he? Tell me he's more intelligent and so. Maybe I believe it, but I will tell them. But if I tell you, "Oh, I had only good luck, sir, nothing else," yes, then there's no reason for envy against me. And maybe the people think they are more likable, but I think in reality, actually, they know that it's not only luck, but maybe there's another explanation. It's not only this against envy, but on the other hand, I think in a lot of cases, really, they don't know why they are successful. So it's a bad idea if you speak with successful people and you ask them, please tell me, why are you so successful? In a lot of cases, they can't tell you because they don't know. And this is, I wrote as well in my book, this is the theory about explicit and implicit learning, and explicit and implicit knowledge. And these people, these entrepreneurs, their knowledge, their wisdom is a result of this, what we call in psychology, what we call implicit learning. So learning by doing, not book wisdom, and not what they teach you at university. But the problem with implicit learning, it's you call it as well intuition or gut feeling. You can't explain it to anyone else. You can say, okay, it's my gut feeling. And so, and this is, the task of a scholar or scientist like me, to find out why these people are successful. It would be so easy that you ask me, please tell me why you are successful. In the most, okay, if you ask people a question like this, you will get only answers like, I was lucky, or I worked a lot, or things like this. But I think it won't help you. So if you have interviews like this, it's very important. The most important thing, to have the right questions. That's the right questions. If you have stupid questions like this, you would get stupid answers.
Yeah, well, I'm just reflecting. I experienced that mostly as a writer, in the sense that, when people hear that, oh, you have books published, they'll often have questions, and you can usually get a good read for who's really thinking about and serious about, I want to become a successful writer, by the kinds of questions. The typical question that everybody always laughs at is something like, where do you get your ideas? Or it's, do you do your writing in the morning or the afternoon? And those can be fine if you're just interested in that particular person, you want to know about them and, hear what the routines are. But if you're looking for a recipe, that's very different than asking more strategic questions, and questions that aren't looking for a kind of like, recipe for success. What of the results most surprised you of your research?
There were a lot of interesting things. Surprise, yes, maybe. It was interesting to learn about their youth and their childhood, and what they did at school and or high school, university. Um, First, this didn't surprise me, but I will tell you about it for a moment. There was absolutely no correlation between their performance at school on the one hand, and their later financial success on the other hand. Some of them were very good at school, and others absolutely not, and some didn't even have a high school degree. So there was no relation. But what was important, and this was maybe a little bit surprising for me, half of them were competitive athletes when they were at in that when they were young. And this was, I think, very important for them, because this is something, it has something to do with this implicit learning, where I talked about this learning by doing on. If you are engaged, very ambitious in sports, in competitive sports, then you will learn how to win, and much more important, you will learn how to lose and all this, and you will learn a lot about discipline and tolerance with frustration. You will learn a lot of things that are very important later in your life as to be successful. And the other thing, I asked them how they earned money alongside school. And when I was a student, most of the other students, they worked for an hourly wage, for example, in restaurant or taxi driver, or even in a factory. but these people were different. They were engaged in early entrepreneurial activities, especially with sales. They had so many funny ideas what to sell. Some of them sold things like life insurance or real estate products, or used cars, or car radios, or one of them raised animals, sold them, one sold home winter gardens, and so many different things. But a lot of them had very early experience with sales, and this was very important. And then later I asked them, how important was it for you to be good in sales for your success? And with sales, I don't mean only to sell a product or um, or something like this, but I mean everything, to convince people. If you hire people for your company, you have to sell something. If you go to maybe to the government to get permission for something, yes, you have to convince them. And I think one of them told me everything is sales. And sales start if you get a no, if people tell you no. And it's listen, I had the same experience a few days ago. I told you about my new book, and I know a person who's blind, and there's a movie about his life, and I asked him to write a forward, a preface for my book, and he promised it to me. But then 2 weeks ago he told me, oh, maybe, I don't know, I have so many other things to do. And what is your plan B if I can't deliver at time? And I gave very short feedback. There's no plan B. I trust and I believe that you will do what you've promised. So what I mean, I don't accept no. Yes. And I think this is what it is about in sales. Yes, I don't accept no as an answer.
Yeah, and I should say I'm not a natural salesman. Like I remember being terrified of doing like sports in school, in part because they all had to do these fundraising drives where they'd have to go out and sell candy or whatever it was in order to make money for it. But it was something I was able to cultivate. And part of it goes back to the point you made about having a why. The more that I was clear on, I'm trying to do something that think is really important in the world, the more that it was, I have no concern if somebody's going to say no. It's give me that no so you can get out of the way and I'm going to, move on. Or I'll keep pushing if I need you to say yes. Right. But it's, if you have a very clear why, it's a lot easier to deal with kind of the kinds of anxieties that some people can have, even if you're not a natural salesperson.
Absolutely, I agree. Absolutely.
Well, so we're getting close to time, but I did want to ask you. So I think we've maybe had some examples that answer this, but I'm really curious as to common advice you hear about how to become wealthy that you think or have found in your research is actually very bad advice.
First, when I became interested in how to become rich, I told you I read a lot of books, and a lot of books were about investing in stocks. And if you ask me, this is not the way how to become rich. I invest in stocks. I have nothing against it, but for me, it's a way to stay rich, not to become rich. And if you look at the list of the wealthiest people in the world, the Forbes list, you will find almost no one who became rich with stock investment. Some mention Warren Buffett, but it's a different story. It's not the typical passive stock investor. But most of them were entrepreneurs. And this is true in Germany as well as in the United States, and I think in UK as well. And there was another doctoral thesis in Germany about they had interviews with 450 wealthy people. They were not so rich as my interviews. They had only on average 2 million, but they asked them what was the main reason, how did you become wealthy, and they were only 2.6% who mentioned stock investments. There were 10% who mentioned real estate, but most of them, if they didn't if they were not heirs, yes, if they didn't inherit their wealth, yes, take them away. You can't learn anything from them, yes. But if you take them away from the others, most of them were entrepreneurs. And so I think it's if you start to think about how to grow rich, I think it's not the best idea to start with stock investments. I believe that most lay people who do it, they will lose more money than they gain. Sure, you can have good luck if you invest at the right time in the last year or so. For example, if you like I did, I bought shares in an exchange traded fund last March, for example. This was a good idea. You couldn't do something wrong. But I think, I have nothing against stock investments. Don't understand me wrong, but I think it's more a way to stay rich than the way to become rich. If you want to become rich, it's more important. The most important thing is to make really a decision, not in this way like it would be nice, I would be happy if it would be. No, write it down. It's very important. Write it down. And even what I did, yes, when I did, I didn't write only, I didn't write it down only with with a sum, but every day I practice this autogenic training. It's a kind of meditation, or it's similar to self hypnosis, yes, and you can relax 100%. And then I programmed this individual formula in my subconscious mind. Maybe for some people it sounds a little bit mystical or crazy, but for me it worked definitely. And I have another book. It's Dare to be Different and Grow Rich. And I have a chapter about it. I compared with a GPS system. As if you want to go from one town to the other, you use your GPS, and you have to program where you want to go. This is important. And sure, of course, you have to drive and to fuel with gas and so. But you don't have to know the way. And this is what I say. You have to know where you want to go to. You have to know why you want to go there. But this is maybe the most important thing. You don't have to know the way in the first moment. The why is more important than how. Maybe some food of thought for your audience.
No, and it's good. And I'll just tell people, I mean, that overlaps very nicely with one of the bodies of research that you cite quite a bit is goal setting research, including by a friend of mine, Edwin Locke, who's a psychologist who kind of pioneered goal setting research. And just like that, it's, I think, your form of kind of just keeping that goal real in your mind and reminding yourself of it constantly so that it's orienting you. And then, like you said, you have to kind of like figure out the way as you go. But that's so powerful, because going back to the luck point, I mean, one thing that nobody can deny is that the so-called lucky entrepreneurs, they put themselves in the position of being able to benefit from whatever luck does happen to go their way by being entrepreneurs. You're never going to get lucky if you're, in a job where there is no potential upside.
Yes.
And so it's I found that really helpful and interesting. Well, thank you. I want to recommend everybody definitely get The Wealth Elite. I think it's a really excellent book, as are the others of yours that I've read and that we talked about last time. And hopefully when your new book comes out, we can do that one as well.